Well, that's it. I'm done. I mean, you're singing about all this joy and hope and Jesus and love, and I don't get it. I'm done. I mean, all of us, we might as well just call it quits. Just pack it up and hunker down, because the lyrics are true. It's the end of the world as we know it. I mean, after all, think about it. The Amazon rainforests are burning at an alarming rate. The White House is a mess, no matter what side or issue you stand on. Our schools are losing teachers left and right, and our students don't seem to have a chance. Mainline churches, once the cornerstone, the anchor of communities, are now dwindling, and rural churches are closing their doors all over the place. It seems like it's every man, woman, and child for themselves. I'm telling you, the end is near. And so the question is, how will anyone survive? Now, I know you might chuckle. You might think that's a bit extreme. But it really doesn't take one long to realize that that is the message that seems pervasive in our society, flooding our social media. It's a message that becomes a daily occurrence in radio and television, and both newsstands, for those that are still around, and bookshelves, they are stocked with stories and predictions about such issues. Most days, for most people, not all, but for most, the world is, as they say, going to hell in a handbasket. It just seems to be our culture, the way society is. And if we look at things like the fact that suicide rates are at an all-time high, and no one wants to admit or address the issues of food insecurity or homelessness, the marginalized are being pushed farther and farther aside. Drug use, domestic violence, addiction, and everything that goes with it continues to increase, while funding and personnel for social services and humanitarian efforts continue to decrease. So it's easy then, isn't it, to see why so many people give up, turn away, or just don't care anymore? Why so many people lose hope in the midst of such darkness? Not to mention in the shadows of their own personal struggles. And those that do stay the course seem to be more and more the few and far between. And then there's us. Here we are, the church, right in the middle of it. Now, it may not seem like we're in the thick of it, but maybe we should be. Because we too are bombarded with messages of gloom and doom, and we're inundated with people and needs out there needing help, right? People bringing their concerns and asking for more and more and more. And we might find ourselves listening, or maybe even asking the questions like so many others. When does it end? How do we manage all of this? How do we balance all of this? Where is the hope? What's the point? What's the use anymore? I mean, does our faith really even matter anymore? What difference does it all make, church? Well, what difference? All the difference. All the difference in the world. Hear these words from Revelation chapter 21. I saw heaven and earth new created. Gone the first heaven, gone the first earth, gone the sea. I saw holy Jerusalem new created, descending resplendent out of heaven, as ready for God as a bride for her husband. I heard a voice thunder from the throne, "Look, look, God has moved into the neighborhood, making his home with men and women. They're his people. He's their God. He'll wipe away every tear from their eyes. The earth is gone for good, Tears are gone, crying gone, pain gone, all the first order of things gone. The enthroned continued, look, I'm making everything new. Write it all down, each word dependable and accurate. Well, that is the word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. If a book of the Bible could receive an Oscar for Best Picture, Revelation would be it. The imagery, the sounds, the symbolism, and so much more create this powerful display for the listener, for the reader, the observer. And I also think that if a book of the Bible could receive a Grammy for Best Musical Score, Revelation would be it. From beginning to end, we hear the notes and the ebb and the flow of vision and mystery, defeat and deliverance, terror and triumph. It is a book that leaves us, as Eugene Peterson describes it, reeling from a constant rush of color and sound and image and energy. Here in the second to last chapter of Revelation, we experience the climax of the entire book, the climax of this mysterious, beautiful, sometimes frightening, a bit elusive, but ultimately hope-filled vision. It is here that we receive full disclosure of this incredible promise of God. So here we find John of Patmos describing really the next best thing since Jesus' resurrection: a new heaven and a new earth. Now, John was a pastor of several churches in the first century. And as he was serving all of these churches, he was trying to help the people in those churches keep the main thing the main thing. Sound familiar? And he spoke to them about keeping their focus on Jesus' life and resurrection and on God's redeeming power. And really, if you dig into the book of Revelation, it's really about worship and community. The time that John recorded this vision was really not an ideal time in their culture. They had endured persecution, intense hatred, isolation, division, and on and on. It was not an ideal time to go to church and hold hands and sing Kumbaya and It Is Well. But John was trying to remind them of what was important and what to hold on to, and that it is the community of God, the church, that can hold things together. Now, a lot has been said and projected and written and painted and researched about the vision or revelation of John. And some ask questions like, is it some futuristic time and space phenomenon thing that happened? Is it some kind of mystic or spiritual hallucination? You know, what really was in the water that John was drinking? Is it the final judgment for all humanity or just the elect few? Did it even really happen? Is it a depiction of what was, what is, or what will be? Well, I want to tell you, church, I have the answers. I can answer them all today. And the answer is yes. And maybe a little no. Revelation is one of those, writings that is filled with imagery and symbolism and metaphor. It is more like allegory than it is fiction. Allegory is a story or an explanation of an experience that's built on fact and witness, and it is designed to teach or reveal the truth found within said experience or said witness. Probably one of the most famous examples of allegorical writing is C.S. Lewis's The Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. It was written initially for his children, And it's a story based on the author, C.S. Lewis, based on his knowledge of good and evil, his knowledge of the Bible, his wisdom from his life and experiences of being a Christian. And it was written all to explain what was happening in the world to his children and what it was all about. And as I thought about all of that, and I thought about what we face today and all that's going on in our world today, I began to think that such a vision like Revelation 21 is just what we need. It is the reminder that we need, because it is there that we are brought back to the heart of Jesus' message, the promise of God with us, here and now, and the restoration and completion of God's creation. It is there in that vision that we catch a glimpse of what we already know, what we've already seen through the life and ministry of Jesus and through countless witnesses on the pages of the Bible and people throughout history who have lived their faith. But somewhere along the way, and I don't know how it happens and I can't explain the mystery of it, but somewhere along the way we always forget. We always forget or lose sight of the biblical narrative. And we replace it with whatever voice around us is the loudest, or whatever distraction is the most entertaining. And we lose sight of the main thing. We allow the chaos and the noise and the confusion of our world to drown out or mask or even silence the hope-filled message of love that Jesus was all about. Now, there is no doubt about it. We are indeed navigating the landscape of a divided and fractured society in which we are doused with conflicting stories, confusing promises on every side. And if you think about it, no one knows what to think anymore because they have been told what to think for so long that they forgot how to think. Think about that. No one knows what is important anymore because everything is important to everyone. And no one knows what to stand for anymore because we feel this pressure to stand for everything. And no one knows what to believe anymore because our world is a jumbled mess of contradicting thoughts, volatile emotions, and vastly different experiences. We are a jumbled mess of judgment and ignorance and prejudice and contradiction, and the list goes on and on. People are living in and from a place of fear rather than faith. I think that's the bottom line. People are living in and from a place of fear rather than faith. And a lot of the times, we don't even know it. People see the world through the lenses of criticism and sarcasm and skepticism. Are there any skeptics out there this morning? It's hard. It's hard to see what's going on in the world today and not be a skeptic or critical. A world where we seem to feast on individual success rather than true community. To such a time as now, to such a place as here, for such a people as you and me, comes a message of hope. A vision that creates a portrait of our faithful God. Not an angry or disappointed God, but our faithful God. A revelation of the God narrative that was started in Genesis, maybe before Genesis. And this is the image and promise that gives us hope, church. This is what we hold on to in the midst of frustration and disappointment and division and confusion and opposition that surrounds us and sometimes consumes us. if we were in John's church in the first century, I think John would be telling us that we are to see the world through the lens of hope, believing that what Jesus did for us and modeled for us was worth something. Do you remember what Jesus did? Trusting that the new heaven and new earth is both now, right now, and not yet. It is a vision of what Jesus gave us already through his life and death and resurrection, and it is the full restoration that is to come. Now, it is not put your head in the sand and pretend that all is well. It's not that kind of hope. And it's not the kind of hope that if you plug your ears and go, la, 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 if you can't hear it, it's not real. Or if you can't see it, they can't see you, you can't see them, then it's not real. It's not that kind of hope. It is the kind of hope that you keep your eye on Jesus and trust that all is well. This is the end of the world as we know it. Because tomorrow the world will be different. And next week the world will be different. And a month from now the world will be different. The world continues to change at incredible lightning speeds. And most of us are doing the best we can. But today I want to challenge all of us to consider how we can not only survive these times, but thrive in their midst. How do we hold on? How do we find our way? With hope, dear church, with hope. The kind of hope that gave us life. The hope that brought us out of our own darkness and put our feet on solid ground. The kind of hope that puts our broken, fragmented pieces of life back together in ways that we never imagined possible. The hope that will one day take us to our eternal home, where every tear will be wiped away, every cancer cell erased, every form of dementia and Alzheimer's gone. The hope where there is no more pain, no more suffering, and all will be made whole. Have hope, dear church. Have hope. Amen.